a lot of people look very similar in development to how I would look previously before I got the bone grafting surgery. For like friends, like people outside the gym, just like, hey man, you look really big. It was very hard for me to acknowledge that because deep down I really didn't. That feeling of really fighting that last rep up never left me. That satisfaction is probably the best feeling I've ever had.
Yeah, bro. Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today, we have athlete at a national level, bodybuilder, and he has his diploma in digital art and visual effects. Gryffen Algot. He is most well known for his social media presence, and today we will discuss mental health and dealing with the physical and psychological effects of his birth disorder, self-discovery, learning how to keep moving forward and develop meaningful skills and hobbies, and developing his physique in the gym and how the gym has helped him throughout life. Gryffen is a phenomenal person, and he has this unique disorder since he was born, and that has not stopped him from accomplishing phenomenal things. I met him at the gym and I just thought this guy was huge. You could see the work ethic, and yeah, he's got a great story to tell today, and I hope all of you could derive great value from this episode. Everybody, welcome to the Long-Term Podcast.
Thanks, happy to be here.
Yeah, so how has your birth disorder shaped your perspective on self-worth and personal growth?
Growing up, it was hard. I guess like during my younger years, I didn't think about it too much. I knew I was different, but I didn't really realize how that might affect like other people's perspective or even my own. Throughout the entirety of high school, I was homeschooled, which has its pros and cons. Like it's something that can work for some people. It's something that can't, it's something you have to weigh. But something that was generally lacking was more of a social aspect. And I'm not entirely sure when this happened or even if I was like supposed to be aware of it. But at one point I heard my parents like conversing with maybe like a relative or a friend, I can't really remember, but they were like, yeah, we wanted to homeschool for, I'm sure they had a myriad of reasons, but the one I managed to overhear was like, we were worried about Gryffen being bullied a lot. So like little me was like, oh, I just need to avoid everyone because I'm going to get bullied. So I was put in a bit of a rough situation where I just didn't really feel like everyone would be friendly to me in terms of just how I looked. I felt like I would be constantly belittled and degraded just from what I've heard, like outside perception. None of this has actually ever happened to me. It's just something I was so afraid of that I didn't even bother. It felt easier for me to just avoid it all and not get involved in, any sort of social activity outside family.
So how long was it until you became aware of the fact that you were different from other people? Because growing up when you're kids, you look at other people and you don't really know what's normal, and then people make you feel different, right? And because people act in a certain way, and your parents, while they had good intentions, they wanted to protect you because kids are mean, man. Just there's a lot of bullying, right? And if the kids like to put other people down just to boost themselves up, and it's all just a lack of maturity and a lack of insecurity. At which point did you realize, was it the time when you heard your parents talk about putting you into school?
It was probably when they mentioned that I, like, not even might, just would get bullied. And honestly, they're probably right. I also think, like, looking back on it, I would probably be bullied, yeah. But Even just before that, it was kind of like, oh, I was aware of how I was different because obviously, like, I was different. Like, I had no, well, I want to say at the time I found it out, I had two teeth. I only ever had three teeth throughout my entire. By the time you saw me, I probably had them pulled already, but I had three teeth on the top, two kind of close together, one separated, and they were oddly shaped. They were like pointy. So I knew that that wasn't normal just by seeing everyone else. Like, oh, that's interesting. But I didn't really think anything of it, like socially or like in terms of mental, because oh wow, look at me. I'm just this guy, having different things. But yeah, it was really when like I heard like the possible ramifications of that, where I was like, oh, I need to not let anyone see this, or just like completely detach myself from ever even possibly being in that situation, which resulted in a lot of like isolation, and I lacked a lot of that necessary like social benefit that other kids would experience throughout their life. It's kind of tough.
Yeah. So, what exactly is this condition?
So the overarching like term for it, there's a lot of different ways it affects people, but the broad term is ectodermal dysplasia. It ooh, I used to know a lot of statistics about it because I had to make a few videos on it because people were curious. But very rare condition. I think the number in my head is 30,000. I think I saw like a poll in America, like some sort of like statistic there. 30,000 people in America alone had ectodermal dysplasia, some type of it. So extremely rare disorder. In person, at least in Alberta, I flew out to a conference in Oregon. There's an organization called NFED, National Federation of Ectodermal Dysplasia. So they had a conference in Oregon, which was really cool to see. Like, even though it affects like a lot of different kind of aspects in the body and can affect people in different ways, a lot of people look very similar in development to how I would look previously before I got the bone grafting surgery for my implants. It's like really incredible to see because you just look around and like everyone essentially looks pinpoint identical to what I looked like. So I'm sidetracking a little bit, but so it's just really cool to see.
I bet, man, you feel like one. You feel
Yeah.
more connected to people because you can actually understand. You can see them, and it looks so similar, and so they can understand kind of what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It was really
it's cool.
Yeah, it was really empowering. It's just like, man, these people are like me because I've never met anyone that ever had the same condition or even kind of resembled me, because I had a lot of different like going into like what the disorder actually does, at least for me. A lot of it is cosmetic. Like, I have hair, obviously. Like, the beard grows in a bit weird and it's very scruffy, but again, that's like genetic and occurs in most people that have the disorder. But all other hair on my body is either non-existent or very like frail and thin. So if it were to grow in, it would just break off. And outside of like more cosmetic changes, there's obviously like the teeth, the way my bone grows in, the hair. The Arguably the biggest thing for my case of ED is that I cannot sweat. My sweat glands are basically like null, ineffective. So I'm very prone to overheating in even areas where most people would consider like normal, like room temperature. The breaking point I usually reference is like 20 degrees and up. That's like a little bit of a danger zone for me.
Then would cardio just be
Yeah,
a bit dangerous at times?
Weightlifting on its own is even like just like exertion is like generates body heat, right? That's what energy is. So usually when I do cardio, I either do it in like short bursts or like if I'm planning to do something a little longer, I pace myself. And a lot of the times, especially in the summer, I will go outside, like take a break. I drink a lot of water, which is really the number one way you can fight this is just constant circulation of water, because that's the only type of like heat regulation I have in my body is just constant intake outtake of water.
And maybe pouring it on yourself, does that help?
It does, yeah. One trick I learned is that coating your pressure points, like where blood vessels and like veins are most exposed to your outer layer of skin, like wrists and ankles, and there's a spot around your neck. But like hitting those with water will really help regulate your temperature, because that obviously like it carries through your system a lot more effectively because it's more exposed. So that's a neat trick I learned. I would often at younger ages, and even like it's always a good idea, I carried around like kind of like a spritz bottle, just like something like a mist, right? Just to kind of, I guess, emulate what sweat would be or where it would be. But another pitfall of that is my body is very dry. So my skin is like sensitive and dry. So if I'm over like coating myself with water, my skin is very prone to cracking. I have a few like cracks and blisters on my fingers, even just because it's super hard to regulate when I'm this like devoid of moisture, essentially.
Yeah, but winters must be a struggle, hey?
Oh yeah, constant cracked hands,
But then
cracked
summer
lips.
too, since the overheating part.
Yeah, there's no winning.
Yeah. Which one do you prefer?
Well, I obviously like generally prefer colder climates for that main reason. So I've always said my favorite season is fall, just
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's a nice middle ground. You know, can wear a sweater. I never really feel too warm ever, but it's not like unbearably cold.
What strategies or practices have helped you manage insecurities and build self-confidence over time?
The main one that comes to my mind is the gym, because it's like one of the first healthy habits that I employed for like my own benefit, self-development, really. Um, it didn't really set in at first, because it ultimately it's good for like self-confidence and like that feeling of, you know, worth. Like I'm kind of building myself up a little bit, and it's something I always strived for. But at the end of the day, it's really not going to change much up here. Like regardless of how hard I go to the gym, and the newbie gains were good, like as they usually are. Like I see a lot of progress in my first year, but I never really could appreciate it, just because of multiple factors. Just like where I was at the time mentally regarding all the buildup that has been like previously to this point, like feeling isolated and not confident in myself. It was kind of hard to ever embrace myself in any way, physically or spiritually, emotionally. Like it's just been really tough to see that progress in me, even when I had a few people in my first few years, like friends, like people outside the gym, just like, hey man, you look really big. It was very hard for me to acknowledge that, because deep down, I really didn't see it that way. So it's kind of hard to validate that response if it's blocked like from my head to begin with.
If you don't have that love for yourself, it doesn't matter how many times somebody else compliments you, hey? Because I'm the same way, where a lot of people compliment me and I'm unable to receive it, because in my head, it's another person telling me I'm not good enough, right? Or I'm not beautiful, or I'm not
Yeah.
in this, like it seems like my mind goes into like this perfect, like if I'm not this perfect being, then I'm not worthy.
Yeah. You always like imagine yourself at 100, and then until you're there, you can't really, it's hard to recognize any of that. There's always something with that internal conflict. Like And it's really hard too because social outlets are very, very good and uplifting for just those kind of like experiences of not feeling worth. Like it's that's the number one place I would recommend to reach out to is just like people around you. But if it's so like integral in your mind, there's just something in there. It's like he's lying to you. You know, it's like no, I'm not big. Like why is he making this up? He's just trying to make me feel good. But yeah,
it's like they're just saying that to make me feel better. They
Yeah,
don't
no,
actually
exactly.
think that, and it's all the compliments don't have any value because you're not even absorbing it properly. And is that still the case to this day?
no.
No.
I'm glad to say it's not.
Great, good. I'm happy to hear. When was the turning point?
That's really tough. I would want to say not too recent, but also not too far away. If I had to pinpoint it, it would probably be around like I'm 22 now, as of December 23rd, 2024.
Oh, wow. As of when was your birthday?
April 3rd.
Okay, I was gonna say that was your birthday recently. Okay, no, yeah.
I'm just dating. I'm putting us like I'm immediately dating this podcast.
Yeah, so when did you start lifting?
I started lifting. There's two answers to this, but what inspired me to start going to the gym was through my sports program. I curl on the side, as I do. Like we're in Canada, you know, it's part of the citizenship test. If you can't curl, then you can't live here. But through that program, they did a little dry land like session every week. So Coach Colton, that was his name. He's a big inspiration for me and what I strive to be. And he helped me push through a lot of stuff. But in those dryland sessions, that was kind of my first taste of ever like exercising or working out. And it was a really good outlet for me because again, I really had nowhere to share my like pent up feelings and emotions and really like exerting myself physically, just like pushing through repeated reps, just constantly pushing, finding that breaking point. And like in my mind, it's like, no, you can do one more. Just like being able to channel that energy into something was really validating at the time because I'd never experienced anything like that. So I attribute like my entire drive of like self-improvement and working out and going to the gym to that one moment. It would be after I graduated that program a year later where I took that extra step to go to the gym on my own terms and start learning things.
You treat the body rigorously so the mind doesn't become disobedient. Yeah, when you go as hard as you can, definitely something just you forget the problems, you forget the ruminations and the obsessions, and all you can think of is just what's in front of you. And I think a lot of people access this just by sitting down and actually focusing on their breath and meditation, prayer. But yeah, this is another form of just relaxation, hey, of just being in the moment.
Yeah, no, especially when you lock in, like you were saying, like after a big rep or a big set, you breathe, right? You brace, you get into it, and it's basically I never really thought about it that way, but that's a really good point. It channels a lot of like the similar like emotions as like meditation. It kind of blocks out all of like I knew it was very calming for me. Like after the gym, after a big workout, it's kind of just like I feel calm. But yeah, it's just like that ability to lock in and like lift heavy circle, make a voice go away, you know?
Yeah. And I say like it's freedom, just cardio for me, because weightlifting, I can only really do that if I'm going insanely fast with little rest in between. But I'm still like for me, it's not as freeing as when I'm going insanely hard. Now for weightlifting, it's like that for you? Or
I would say so. Yeah. During the warm-up sets, it's a bit of a more like it's kind of a flaw I have. I wouldn't say this is mutually exclusive to bodybuilders or like people who lift heavy like as a whole, but I find it kind of hard to lock in during the warm-up sets. Like they're very necessary because you don't want to tear anything, obviously, and you need to build up to that heavy set if you ever want to lift it. But it's also very hard for me to lock in because I know, like, oh, this is just like, lightweight. None of this matters. I can just throw it around. But when I really get down to it, it's like, okay, it starts to get real. It's like, I need to lift this amount of times, or I will either die or be very sad.
Yeah, it's life or death. Yeah, but it's great, man, that you found an outlet. And this condition, and you had said that you didn't accept it prior. What did you realize that made you turn that around?
Again, like, not really. Pretty recent, I would say. I wouldn't embrace isn't the word I would use, because like it's kind of hard to get over the fact that, yeah, I'm just born this way, and in more ways than one, it like is inferior. Like, that's just kind of a fact at this point. Like, I had like weaker bone structure. It was harder for me to breathe, eat, exist in warm climates. It's just, I struggle with things that other people would not even think to struggle about, because sweat, eating, it's all automatic, but it's not so much embracing as it is accepting. The way I've like to look at it is like, sure, I struggle with these things, and 95% of the population might not even think to struggle with it. It's just they live their life and they would never have to worry about it. But in those ways that I have shortcomings, I also understand that I exceed in a lot of things, and it might not be tied to the fact that I have the disorder, but it's just like human nature. I can understand that I can do things despite my disorder, and I can exceed in these things regardless. It's just like, to me, it's pros and cons. Like, I recognize that I can't do a lot of things and I struggle with a lot of things, and it's very debilitating for my everyday life, but I'm still human. I can put one foot in front of the other. I can accomplish anything anyone else could.
It's recognizing the fact that there are all these good things, and sure, there's the bad, and life will never be fair, but you can make something out of the cards you're dealt with, right? And we revere the types of people that do that. I revere kind of what your story, man, and what you've had to go through. How has opening about your mental health journey on social media influenced your healing process and the way you connect with others?
At first, there's a timeline in my head when I think about this. I mainly post on TikTok, just kind of like short form, more so like humory stuff, just whatever I enjoy posting. I'd be lying if I said I don't try and like bend the algorithm to get more views, but at the end of the day, it's not my main concern. I just want to enjoy what I post and hope that others can find that same enjoyment. But the very first post I made that I guess blew up, for lack of a better term, I got a lot of notifications on my phone. I got excited. I was like, oh, okay, wow, like people are really resonating with what I'm creating. So I open it up and I read the comments, and it's all about my face. Just because, like, I guess it would have been one of the first uploads where I opened my mouth. And I can't really blame people for immediately recognizing that, because it's not really something you see every day. It could be people's like first exposure to my disorder, given how rare it is. But that was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, is people weren't really there for what I was creating. They were just kind of, it was jokes. I'm sure there's some people that actually tried to be hurtful, but it was all regarding my appearance. So at the beginning, it wasn't really positive, but there were a few people that were genuinely curious. So as I started to explain it, like, there was obviously the the reactionary people that like, ooh, just kind of, on their feed, back to scrolling. But the people who actually stuck around to hear my story, they were very positive and very uplifting. And that was one of my first kind of like moments of realization that most people that actually care about you or anything you do, they're not going to belittle you over something as little as your appearance. It's just like, it's easy to paint this picture of our modern world where like, oh, like kind of like what I was referring to when I was younger. Like most people, if not everyone, is going to be mean to me just because of the way that kind of emotional reaction spreads on social media. It's a lot of hate. But that moment kind of made me realize like, no, most people are going to support me and they're not even going to care if they have a modicum of human respect for me or themselves or anything involving our relationship.
The people that belittle others for their physical appearance or something trivial, it's usually a reflection on themselves. And
Absolutely.
it's because people that are insecure look for others to validate themselves, to go, oh, hey, look at that person. That person's shorter. That person is ugly, or that person is just stupid. But me, I'm not ugly. I'm not short. I'm not stupid. Like, look at that. But then the irony of it is that person that you may be putting the finger to may be a lot more confident than you are, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
putting them down, sure, it may work, it may not work, but what are you doing? What are you doing here, right? And it's just the people that do stick in your life, the people that want you to do well, that want you to succeed, they're the ones that are doing better.
Yeah.
They're the ones that don't need to put you down. Because I think the people that I've met that belittle me and that want me to go down crashing and burning, they're the ones that aren't happy with their lives. And that's a lot of people on the internet, man. Like a lot of people on the internet don't go out. They don't go to the gym, right? They just scroll TikTok. Yeah, they scroll TikTok, right? Except for the viewers here, because every single person that listens to this podcast is just huge, jacked, successful, obviously. Yeah. So there's not a single person that listens to this and it's gonna end up a loser. Just no.
And like social media, there's obviously a level of like anonymity to that. You can hide behind whatever username or profile. Like it's just like an extra layer of protection from people who, like you said, are really insecure when they're making those comments about other people. But none of that matters to them so long as they can hide so that no one, they themselves struggle with a lot of the same things, but they're afraid to open up to that. So they hide it.
They would never say it to your face, bro.
Absolutely not.
A lot of these top comments that maybe remarking something, cheap shots.
Yeah.
They would never in a million years do it in person.
They
may think
wouldn't.
it, and it's so much burden onto thinking so negatively about the world. I feel bad for those people.
No, for sure, it's draining.
It's like, how do you live? How do you live just like pointing at others and wanting to see them crash and burn? It's like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but I'd like to see them try. I mean, obviously, have you seen me? Okay.
Yeah. No, there we go. There we go. Exactly, man.
There's a little treat for the visual listeners.
But that's great, man. I'm really happy to hear that you've accepted yourself and kind of gone about life. And who are the people that can rely on in these times of need?
It was hard for me to open up to really anyone. But it's mostly like tight-knit like friend groups, those kind of circles that I've come to develop through moments when I'm out and about and just kind of, it's hard to explain because I was obviously avoiding like social interaction due to like what we've established. Like I'm worried what people will think of me. But as life kind of went on and I aspired to build up myself and become the person I want to be, I forced myself, for lack of a better term, to talk to people, to make social connections, because it's like it all comes from understanding, right? That's the first step. Is I recognize like, man, I'm kind of lonely and I don't want it to be this way. So I need to accept a level of vulnerability to go out and find people that resonate with me. So that was one of my main goals when I went into college and went into my studies, is I wanted to find a group of people that I can resonate with. And that group of people ended up being one of the people and the friend group, the circle I found myself most comfortable in, where I can be openly transparent about how I feel. And I know that they're going to resonate with me.
That's terrific. You can wait for the world to hand you over a silver platter of acceptance, of gains, of people that want to uplift you, but that's not never going to happen.
Nope.
Like you have to go out there and you have to get after it. Like you have to find the friends, find the relationships that are meaningful. And even if you do have a family, it takes constant work to be able to cultivate an environment of love, of acceptance, of vulnerability. Because this shit ain't easy, man. Like it's not,
No.
it's not easy to live, bro. Like every day,
it really isn't.
there's like so many things trying to kill you. There's so many things trying to hurt you. Your own mind hurts you, right? Like working out is painful. Studying is painful. Like going out with a friend can be painful, right? There's sacrifices. There's risk of rejection. There's risk of debacles and just all these things. But it's about going, okay, sure, yes, I have a lot of mental afflictions and life may never be fair and it'll never be perfect, but I'm still going to try. I'm going to go
For
out
sure.
there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out there and lift. I'm going to go out there and make some friends. Like who cares if I have this disorder? Who cares if I have this condition?
Mhm.
Who cares if my relationship with my family isn't as strong? I can try and find different ways to succeed.
Yeah. That's really all you can hope to do is try. And it's always going to be scary, regardless of how far along you are. But it gets easier. And it's just about recognizing that you're always going to feel afraid, but accepting that risk and just taking a leap of faith. And it doesn't have to be all at once. It can be slow. You can start with very baby steps, right? That's like, we're coming up on the new year. So the New Year's resolutioners are coming out and they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make 100 grand, buy a house, buy a car, develop my relationship further. They just like, it's never going to work that way. That's extremely ineffective goal setting. You have to start with, okay, I'm going to start making money. Just like find a ramp as opposed to a constant jump.
Yeah. It's there's this quote of you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Yeah.
It's like every single day, what are you doing? It's like you're not gonna be huge after a day. You're not gonna get fat if you eat a bunch as well of unhealthy food. But over the long term, you will get what you deserve. And
Yeah.
if you're constantly shitting on people, if you're constantly hating on yourself and putting other people down, if you're constantly going to the gym or studying, you will get what you deserve. Over a long time horizon, you will create a life of discipline or regret. Yeah. Yeah, bro. With self-discovery, learning how to keep moving forward and developing meaningful skills and hobbies, what are some key moments or realizations that helped you understand your purpose or passions?
It's hard to pinpoint an exact moment. I've seen myself like, I wouldn't say kind of like even growth. It's been exponential for me. It was a lot of dread throughout my early and even late teens. But um, outside of the gym, which I do attribute to like the main breaking point of me wanting to strive to better myself, another outlet I had was not necessarily social media, but I guess it's kind of like that. You heard of Skype? It's kind of old now, but
Yeah, dude, I
like
grinded Skype all the time back then.
it's just funny to have to like I feel old when I like because I know people that have no idea what Skype is.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, through Skype, like I found somewhat of a network of friends. Probably the first instance I had of kind of a social gathering was through Skype and video games. So I don't know if you know this game. Not very popular, not very well known, but there's this game called Minecraft, and
Dude, I've never heard of it. Tell me.
and it was like I heard about it through a random like encounter I had. Just another like 13-year-old kid was like, "Hey." He's kind of like explaining to me. I was absorbing none of that info, but I was like, "Man, that kind of sounds cool. I'll give it a try." And what I was, what we were kind of like establishing previously is like that layer of anonymity that social media gives you. I saw that as like protection. So that was like in person, that's like all my ailments would be open. And I again established like it's going to affect how people perceive me and they're not going to be nice to me. But through this medium of like video games and direct messaging services, I felt a lot more secure in who I was solely from the fact that there's that separation. So I joined like just the most random like multiplayer survival server and started building stuff and had a genuinely like a good time. I found a lot of enjoyment just creating, and more often than not I found that other people enjoying what I've built felt more rewarding to me than having done it for myself. And that may have stemmed from like the lack of self-importance and confidence, but it felt really good and it still feels good. So that drove a lot of my passion to pursue art, which is where I took like my major, I guess you could call it, for my post-secondary studies. But that was one of the first kind of social interactions, kind of like learning what I enjoy, learning that other people can enjoy what I develop, even like completely separated from what I might look like or how I may perceive myself.
What did you major in? Art?
I went to a private school for my post secondary just because like the full encompassing term, I just use like graphic design or like art as kind of like a more broad term, but the full term for what I studied in is 3D animation and visual effects. So
Oh, dope.
I did a lot of 3D art. That was kind of the jump from realizing that I like creating in Minecraft in the funny 3D block game and moving it over to something still kind of hobbyist. Like at the time I was just doing like self studies and like going on like lynda.com or Skillshare and just finding like courses, but just like self learning because I was something I enjoyed. I didn't really realize it could become a career up until I was like 19, 20. But there is a private school just off like 82nd. It's on like 112th. It's right very close to the U of A. It's in like a professional
Okay.
building. They're called like a Pixel Blue College, and they have a 6-month like intensive fundamental course. And that I attribute to a lot of my personal growth. I graduated that class, just short of 2 years now. It would have been. It was March 2023, and that's kind of like where I really pushed myself through my passions to develop my career. It helps develop my confidence, and again, like I pushed myself to make those connections, and those are all people that I like hold dear today. and it's a very good course. I learned so much from that, and I got so many opportunities out of that. And my college instructor is the most chilled guy you could ever meet. Like, when I was going into it, I was kind of envisioning like your stereotypical instructor, like kind of just like old guy that's very stuck up. Well, I guess he's old and he's going to kill me if he watches this, but
Yeah.
he's, I actually like consider him a close friend. He enjoys a lot of the similar stuff I enjoy.
Minecraft?
No, unfortunately not. But like 3D art, like through Minecraft. I'm sure he would enjoy it. You know, I'll have to
I bet
ask
you
him.
would.
He
Yeah.
probably would. He's a bit of a geek.
You, you're telling me it all started from Minecraft, this birth of just of your curiosity into creating and building, and now you finished school for it. You have derived so much meaning and purpose from it. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, as ridiculous as that may sound, yeah, I can attribute everything up to that point to the funny block game made by Swedish people.
Yeah, and Roblox was the the route for me.
Oh, yeah.
Roblox is great. I dabbled a little bit in Minecraft, but I just never really got into it. Like, I'll watch like Let's Plays, but that's about the extent. Yeah, but it's still like it's a game where it doesn't discriminate for age or.
No, yeah. It's just like sandbox, do whatever you want. Can be enjoyed by anyone.
Yeah, it's still. I know it. When PewDiePie started playing it a while back, its popularity just like skyrocketed for a little bit there.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see because it was kind of like up and then kind of stagnated, but then went like back up.
Yeah, it's still pretty popular now.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
say. I know. I go to the U of A and they have a Minecraft club, man.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I might just join. So how did you discover your interest in digital art, visual effects, and bodybuilding, and how have these outlets contributed to your self-discovery? And I know you already talked about Minecraft and digital visual effects. When you say self-discovery, though, what does that mean for you?
I had a hard time. I mean, you could argue that I still do to an extent, really like narrowing down who I am, because a lot of stuff that came with like the low self-esteem and confidence issues, there's like perfectionism as well, and then like kind of people pleasing, which I also fell into. So something I learned the hard way and way too late to start like correcting when it mattered is that like if you live for other people, you're going to lose all self-identity of what you stand for. If you just like bend and twist to everyone else's perception of you and like what they, because you're just going to become like a morph of what everyone else thinks you to be. And it's going to be very hard for you to understand what you actually enjoy and your core beliefs and values. So self-discovery to me is breaking from that kind of amalgamous idea of what other people are expecting from me, and just to like find out who I want to be and understand that other people don't have to like me, I can just be me, and if they don't like me, then that's fine.
That's so powerful, bro. You walk into a room, and if everybody doesn't like you, it's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Because you can walk into another room, and there are people that like you.
For sure.
And it's just not caring. It's just accepting yourself. And this question always comes back to my head of, would you rather have everyone in the world hate you, but you love yourself? Or would you rather have everybody love you, but you hate yourself? And I'd argue that people would like the part where they do love themselves, but everybody hates them. Because it's so tough, man. It's so tough to look in the mirror and go, yeah, I like that guy. Some people just like to run away and they go, because we're so in our heads a lot of the time. And we know ourselves the best. Like, we know all the flaws to the T, because we ruminate on it. And a lot of people destroy themselves with their own minds. And it's tough to see. I've got some friends where it's just they can never really see the good in themselves, and it's tough.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking to see, especially if you're someone who's come from that background. Like I know someone who is still kind of that way. Like he beats up on himself a lot. He's kind of more like of that bendy, twisty people pleaser. And the worst part for me is like I half jokingly confronted him on it. I was like, "Oh, so like you ever think that all of your shortcomings are just from your voice inside of your head, your mental being saying that you aren't good enough to do any of these things?" And he looked at me dead in the eyes, just like, "Oh no, yeah, for sure." I'm like, "Okay, great. Are you gonna do anything about that?" And he's like, "It's like just you only wish the best for the people you care about, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking to see that."
Yeah, it's tough because you see so much good in them, especially if it's like a close friend or a family member. You see the potential, but they don't see it themselves, and that's so heartbreaking. What advice would you give to someone struggling to find meaningful hobbies or the motivation to keep moving forward in life?
It's all like starting from when I was young, like, and the fact that I wouldn't even try to approach anybody just off of the preconceived notion that I would be bullied. Like, keeping in mind that no one had actually ever done it to me. I was just so sold on the fact that people would hate me because of the way I looked. So it's really a lot of it is just roadblocks mentally. It's all in your own head. And taking that first step can be really hard. But more often than not, when you do, you're going to realize that. And that confronting those notions mentally is very pivotal to being able to understand yourself more and break through that kind of rut you're in. So, like, going back to the gym, I referenced that I never really could absorb any sort of confidence or like words of affirmation from friends I saw like outside the gym, maybe like through sport, like my team would compliment my physique. But a little after that, when I was, let's say, 2 years consistently lifting, people inside the gym would come to me and be like, "Hey, man, you look really strong. I see you putting in the work. Keep going." And that really like shattered my mind a little bit because this person who knows nothing about me and can see everything of me, my preconceived flaws that I thought would make them absolutely disgusted in me, just came up to me and complimented me, said that I'm doing good work and that I look incredible. That really like shattered my preconceived notion, my worldview at the time, that this dehabilitation will ruin any chance I have of making friends.
It's realizing that what was in your head did not align with reality
Yeah.
because you were just so quick to assume that people would try to hurt you because they see something that is flawed, but really it's not even a flaw, right? It's just what you've told yourself over and over. And so just by I think effort in itself, man, and by just still by running towards the things that you're passionate about, by never giving up, I think that's how you've realized that this is a life worth living.
Yeah,
And then you build that confidence.
you do. And again, like, it doesn't all have to be immediate, but the moment it hits you, it's going to hit you hard. And then you're going to realize it. And it's going to splay itself out into multiple branching paths of new opportunities now that you know that you can do that.
Yeah. You get to see that, oh, the world is filled with so much opportunity. And I had limited myself vastly with the doubt and fear and insecurity when really, like, how are people gonna be remembered? Right? It's nobody at someone's funeral or when they pass away, if they're cremated, they're not, they don't go, yeah, no, Gryffen was just an absolute stud. Like he was like just the best looking guy. Nobody does that. It's like
No.
how like they were there for me. The Gryffen was supportive and kind and compassionate. The superficial shit that society has, and it's still like an issue. It's like, and I don't know if it'll ever change, but there is the side of life where it is just about the inner self.
Yeah. And it's one thing that I learned that really kind of resonated with me. You're familiar with the spotlight effect, right?
Yes.
So that kind of thinking really helped me shift my perspective because everyone can think about that one embarrassing moment that they had, or maybe a few, and you always play it up. Like in your head, it's traumatized. Like in the movie, like where you drop like a fork at a dinner table and everyone goes, looks at you like, oh my God, you think that everyone is going to remember this and you're never going to recover from it. But a fun challenge you can incorporate, like you can do it right now and everyone else listening can do this. Can you think of one moment where someone else did that and you witnessed it and you still remember it? No, you can't. So thinking that way, like you're not always in the spotlight. You do something, it happened, no one's going to remember this.
Because you're so caught up in your own problems and your own mental pathologies, and you got no time to
No.
to put into that. Everybody, like in a way, we are all so interested in ourselves, right? We all
Mhm.
want to succeed in our own ways that we neglect to think about other people, which is like great when you think about the spotlight effect. Is it's not really true. People do forget, and it's majority of the time people are thinking about their day and what they're gonna do and their future, maybe some trauma, but nobody's gonna like stop by and before they go to bed and just like, wow, like that time I saw that stranger or my friend mess up or embarrass themselves was, wow, this is so valuable to my night and day that I'm gonna allocate some time. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, it's just nobody cares.
Absolutely
But that's the beauty
not.
of it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Could you imagine just someone in like their late 30s going to bed like and being like, man, you remember that one time in 5th grade when I dropped that thing in front of like Kevin and
Yeah.
everyone laughed at him?
Yeah.
It's
when
like,
I, when
no
I,
one does that.
when I voice cracked in front of everyone, it's like, yeah, that's the beauty of it. So developing your physique in the gym and how the gym has helped you throughout your life, how has your fitness journey impacted your mental health and overall outlook on life? And I know we've gone over this many times, but could you elaborate on your
The gym has taught me a lot of things, even more so than like self-confidence. It's taught me like obviously it's something I'm passionate for. Like at first it stemmed from a place of like unwanting or even like anger. I was a very angry lifter when I was young. I'd create these kind of constructs of people, like the people that are belittling me. Like they're like, oh man, Gryffen's so ugly the way he looks. Like that's not normal. Like I created these narratives in my head of the people. Like it's so many layers deep. It's almost funny to look back on.
like the haters?
Like I'm hating people that I think will hate me, that I'm avoiding and never even talk to because I think they're going to hate me, but they're not hating me because I haven't even talked to them. It's like ridiculous to look back on, but that's how it was. And I'm just like pumping it out like 7, 8. Everyone is going to be so
That's
regretful that they hate me now.
I find that so funny where you say, "Oh, fuck the haters," right? And you do this to prove them wrong, and it's, buddy,
Just an empty room.
nobody cares. Yeah, nobody wants to see you fall. If anything, everybody wants to see you succeed, right?
Yeah. But like, even though it stemmed from a place of extreme, like, unbecoming, like horrible mental health and exercises, as I started to develop myself and learn those kind of like preconceived notions were completely false, like fabrications, the passion still stuck with me. So I still enjoy it like to this day. It's just something like ingrained in my brain, like how anyone else would enjoy any other hobby. Or, it's just something I enjoy to do now. And it's completely separated from the fact that I'm doing this because I want to prove something to someone else or because I'm not good enough. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. And that's like brought me a lot of clarity to not only have something that I can enjoy for myself, but also to be free of all of those preconceived notions and still retain this healthy habit that I have.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think for me too, it's not even a matter of will I go to the gym? It's more of how long will I stay at the gym for? And yeah, it's not even a battle of will I go or will I not? It's more which muscle
legs
group
today.
yeah, legs today. It's like breathing air. It's like eating. It's like it becomes so ingrained in the system because you just can't picture life without it.
No, it really speaks to like the power of habit, because whenever it was last year and a bit during school, and then recently when I was employed in my field, I do sports on the side, and it's okay to juggle like a full-time position or full-time learning with sports, but it leaves me not a lot of time. So I just kind of like thought to myself, when and where could I possibly fit the gym? Because I'm not going to give it up. The only available time slot I had consistently is the morning. And I consider myself as a night owl, but I did it. I woke up at 4:30. I went to the gym at 5.
Yeah, love
I
it.
pumped it out before
yeah.
school or work, and then I went to do my sports. And I found it to be like not only something I thought I had to do, but it turned into something that really rejuvenated my daily routine. Because what comes with the gym is like inspiration. Like you said, it's hard to imagine not going to the gym. So if I know I'm hitting the gym in the morning, I'm up and at 'em. I have one rest day in the weekday, and it is impossible for me to wake up that morning, despite it being infinitely later and getting more sleep. I just can't do it because I know what follows that is work. So I found if I put that thing that I enjoy, it happened out of like happenstance. But if it's in the morning, I can just naturally wake up and look forward to waking up and then go through my habit of gym, shower, breakfast, and I'm up, I'm energized, I'm ready for work. It's amazing to think about.
I find it tough to rest, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone to that point, right? So you started off going to the gym and creating all these haters in your head. And then eventually that subsided, but the passion stuck.
Yeah.
So now it's just the feeling of the weight, the tension. That's what frees you now, hey?
Oh, yeah. Just pumping out heavy ass iron, That feeling of really fighting that last rep up never left me. That satisfaction is probably the best feeling I've ever had.
Yeah, bro. What would life be without the gym, man? Be a very dark place.
It would be.
Be a lot of crime in Sherwood Park, that's for sure.
From me in particular.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah, I just remember being a teenager, and I never really put much deep thought. I just kind of went, and it's just, yeah. Then I'd have thoughts of kind of the motivation phase where like, yeah, I've got to do this to succeed. Then there's like the hater phase where it's like, fuck the haters, gonna prove everyone wrong. I'm gonna be huge. Then there's just, wow, this feels good. This is chill. Like, I love doing this. And usually that mode of thinking where it's just, oh, this is fun. Like I like doing this. It's part of my routine is really healthy compared to all the other mental modalities.
You're just in there like, oh, Sandra's gonna be so pissed when she finds out I'm huge.
She's gonna be jealous. She's gonna regret that.
No one thinks that way.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. What challenges did you face when starting your fitness journey, and how did you overcome them?
A lot of it like is just inherently tied to my disorder, like we discussed earlier, like exertion through like body heat and being overexerted, overheating, being exhausted. But one thing particular to the gym, and not necessarily unique to me and my condition, is just that awkward learning phase in the beginning. So
one set on every machine.
Yep. Hitting the full body workouts on all the machines, never touching the free weights because that's scary. I don't think I ever bench press or like squatted like the compound lifts. I didn't touch that up until maybe my first year and a half of lifting.
Oh wow.
It's just in my head, like, you know, that's kind of scary, like pushing all that weight like directly in front of me. Like you're worried about injury and maybe even death. Like you go to that extreme. But one thing I found to help alleviate that fear is I knew a few people from curling that also enjoyed going to the gym, and they were like, yeah, you man, let's hit bench press. And I was like, that kind of like feeling of being comfortable around them, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I could put up a surprising amount of weight. I think my first ever recorded bench is 115 pounds with a year of experience, weighing probably 90 pounds soaking wet.
Wow.
So genetics, obviously, but like that was impressive. Like, and my friends were kind of like, wow, that's a lot of weight. And they kind of looked shocked when I told them I'd never bench pressed. And they're like, wow, you should. So I was like, man, you know, I ended up bench pressing every day after that just to get better.
This goes back to how you never really know until you try it. And chances are it's going to go well.
Yeah.
Because you just tried.
You always envision it to be harder than it actually is.
But your form was all right? The first try? Was it, you're just a natural?
I think so. I mean, it's kind of hard. Obviously, I didn't have like an arch. I was flat benching, probably close grip.
Yeah.
But I didn't hurt myself. It felt fine.
Fair. Yeah, dude. I just I just remember my first encounter with the gym was going to the school gym with my buddies, and my goal in mind was to get this girl to like me.
Uh-oh.
And I got huge, man, and she never liked me.
No.
But the guys did.
Yep. After year one, that's the first thing you learn. The women don't care.
Yeah.
The men do.
The men care. Yeah. I heard it's the same thing for cars. I'm not a car guy. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not really either, but I would not be surprised.
Yeah. It's like, man, they're gonna be so impressed, and all the girls are gonna come flocking when they realize that I have a 135 bench, you know, out of high school. And it's like, yeah, no girl cares. The guys care.
You got all the homies coming around, giving you high fives, hyping you up. It's like, man, this is not how I thought this was going to go.
Yeah, that's funny. What lessons from the gym have translated into other areas of life, such as your career or personal relationships?
I really pride myself on my strong work ethic. I see myself as a honest to God go-getter. Like, and I feel like that's how I was born, that's how I was created, and that's really resonated with me through the gym. It's kind of, it builds that from an early age of like, okay, day 1, day 2, day 3, you keep going with it and you put in your all every time and you stay on that. And then by the time I went into that like post-secondary learning and going into the classroom and putting in 8 hours every day of just raw studying, learning, practicing, it's just kind of like, oh, I look back on the gym and I think I just want to be the best version of myself. And I know that's only going to happen through my hard work. So it makes no sense to not try my best. And I found myself from other people and even my professor and in some elements myself, like people recognize that. They're like, this looks amazing. How did you do this? Or like, I see you just constantly grinding it out at your desk at the computer. And there were a few days, obviously, like people turn out sick. The college instructor turns out sick. Just happens, flu season. So more often than not, we would have a day where just like, come in if you want. Nothing's going to be taught. Our instructor isn't there, obviously. So I pull up, obviously, because I see it as no different than if he were here. It's a day of study. It's a day I can put in work and I can improve. I think there was me and two other people, maybe even only one, and they peeled off halfway through the day. I even told myself, like, yeah, I'll call it quits soon. But I found myself so like enveloped in what I was creating, and just that passion flew through me and my mind and my fingers as I was developing. I like look at the clock and all of a sudden I'm going to miss the bus. Like the day's over. I need to leave. It's just that understanding of if you enjoy something and you put in that work consistently and you try your best, there's nowhere to go but up.
There's this idea from my favorite podcaster, Chris Williamson, where as long as you keep coming back day after day, you give it your best, even the consistency and stuff, it doesn't even have to be your best. You will come out on top. And that's
Yep.
that effort based consistency. And yeah, when you don't realize the time, when you're in that flow, and kind of it's the same way for the gym for you too, hey?
Yeah.
It's remarkable how much progress and the amount of work you accomplish is just, it's vast. And you see people that are much more talented
Mm-hmm.
beat by just your sheer work ethic. And you seem to be a person that doesn't back down. It's just relentless. No matter how many times you're put down, or you seem to find a way to get back up and try and try.
Mm-hmm.
Who instilled this in you, or where did you discover this mentality?
That's really tough. It's hard to pinpoint. Again, like I feel like I've said that a lot, but I think like the first moment of me actually like realizing it, I just think I'm a very passionate person. Um, I am, like, as you've probably inferred from all my stories, I'm a bit sensitive. It's one of my bigger weaknesses. It's better now. I'm trying to detach myself from that, but it's easy for me to take a lot of things like to heart. I just like feel and empathize on a higher level than most people probably would. Like, and I think that kind of stems from my need to succeed along with the perfectionism. It's like I just need to always be good, which is not always true, but it is the main driving force for my, I guess, like motivation or like drive, passion, which is not the healthiest. And again, it's something I've detached myself from progressively, obviously still with me. But the first instance of that was like I took a Taekwondo class. And it was a lot of fun at the time. Just like kind of form, like technique, patterns, like I don't exactly remember what they call it now, but it's like where you go through the motions. You have like a pattern. There was like four-way block, I think is the first one they teach you, where it's just like block, punch, pivot. It's like a kind of a dance almost. And I wanted to there's ranks in the belts. Like everyone knows that. There's like white, yellow, green, blue, red, black. That was probably wrong, but it's like that's just like an innate progression system that I saw. I was like, yeah, I want to be that guy. I want to be the black belt. So I just pushed myself really hard. It was I wouldn't say destructive, but just very unnecessary. Like a lot of the time, I'd just be like, yeah, I'd be so like driven to progress. I would like by the time the class was over and I was outside waiting for my mom to pick me up, I was doing like knuckle push-ups on like the concrete curb. It's like I just had like this huge immense fire inside me to achieve that, to the point where I was probably making a fool out of myself outside of the taekwondo studio. But I'm just like, I'm fired. I'm raring to go.
That's that's something that a lot of people need in this day and age. But also there's also a lot of people that could use a little bit of chillaxing. Because I know I'm the
Yeah.
same way where it's like if I'm not doing work, if I'm not putting myself towards something where I'm building and I need to be relentless about it, then I feel guilty.
Yeah.
And you need to give it your all.
It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Like grind set culture is so horrible. The people that are like, oh, I wake up at 3 a.m. I diary for 30 minutes. I do 88 push-ups. I go on the stock market. I trade for 9 hours and then I go to sleep for 4 hours and then I get back up and I do it all again. And if you're not doing that, you're never going to succeed. It's like, you need to learn to stop, to slow down, enjoy things for yourself. It's so destructive.
Yeah, true. Have you met I know you went to that convention, so I'm sure you've met people with the same condition as you. Uh, what seems to be the most common trend that people struggle with?
It's probably the sweat and the overheating, because not even in hot weather, like that can come about whenever, like in the gym, like it's the middle of winter, so it's cold outside, inside, but that doesn't really matter when you are physically exerting yourself, because that heat has nowhere to go. It's outside of the laws of thermodynamics. You you're just like a constant ball of heat, and you can only really truly get rid of that by sitting down and not moving, drinking water, covering yourself in like a cool wet rag. Like, as long as you're in motion, to some degree, you're generating that heat, and to some degree, it's going to pile up and crash on you. So that's been, I obviously can't speak for everyone, but I would argue that is like the main debilitator.
And what would you say to someone who is struggling to the same condition or maybe a similar one and it's holding them back?
It's very easy to push yourself too far. By the time you realize you're overheating, it's too late. You can never wait until you actually feel it to address it, because by that time, you're on the verge of crashing. Like I said, it only ever goes up. At the most you can do is like slow it down, or if you're lucky, like plateau it. Because there's nothing you can do outside of pacing yourself. If you know this is going to happen, and it is, you have to, take frequent breaks, drink a lot of water, find creative methods, like I mentioned before, like water on pressure points, to help cool yourself down, but it's never really going to go down.
What would you say to people who struggle with their mental health and they see themselves as not good enough or ugly or
Mm, I would say it's very easy to get caught in that rut, and it's very dangerous to be stuck in that rut. That was basically for me, like years 8 to 16. When I was 17, like that's when like kind of I started the habits, and like I started being recognized for like in the gym, people recognizing my strong work ethic or like my physique. It's very disappointing to look back on and see all that time that you could have been progressing, but you weren't, just because you held yourself to what you believed was true and those fears that you hold. So if you ever want to break out of that, it's never going to be easy. It's always going to be uncomfortable. You have to do just something. Keep the progress going. Consistency is very, very key, very element to breaking it. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be something very slow, and it can be something you can increment. Or if you feel like it's too much, you can always back down on it or just like stagnate it. But as long as it's something every day, you're going to see that progress sooner or later. As long as you're moving forward, it's the direction you want to be in.
Thank you so much for coming on the Long Term Podcast, bro. Yeah, I appreciate your honesty and your level of hard work and confidence. You're very well spoken, and I could tell how much you've learned from all the things that you've been through, and how much you've really grappled with your emotions and kind of life, and just bringing everything together and just focusing on your passions. And yeah, dude, I think you could help a lot of people who suffer from not only the same condition. Is that the right term? Condition? Would that be
Condition, disorder,
disorder?
like
Okay,
whatever
yeah.
works.
But I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you more at the gym, man. And I hope you never stop being you, dude.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me
Yeah.
on. Can I
Yeah.
shake your hand from this far
dude,
out?
yeah.
And we like, yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's just, it's fucking great what you're doing, man. You're gonna go far in life.
Thank you.
Truly. Yeah.
That's very, very gratifying to hear.
Yeah. And as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Gryffen, Algot, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Peace.